I've said on more than one occasion that people are policy. People are policy. If you want to know what the policy is going to be, look at the person who the authority figure is putting in the spot to act in their stead. Who's going to be the hand of the king in regards to foreign policy or treasury or economics or jobs or environmental stuff? Who are leading these areas and determining or depending upon who is put in, that gives you some idea, some context to what the administration is going to be about in that sphere of influence. Joe Biden has chosen his Secretary of State. The man he's chosen, Anthony Blinken. This guy. This guy has been with Biden for the last 20 years. I want to read a blurb in the New York Times. It is so ludicrous that I have to read it. It's awesome. Now, Blinken is going to be Joe Biden's Secretary of State and, of course, dealing with issues of foreign policy, I think National Security Advisor. But there are multiple people who Joe Biden has brought into his camp, some of which are Republicans, apparently, many of which that are Democrats, pretty much are just basically Republicans. And the people that he's bringing into his cabinet, they're going to use the excuse of Mitch McConnell to not push back on the picks and bring in milquetoast, status quo picks. From the standpoint of a transition from Trump to Biden, one thing that we are going to miss is this lack of wars. Meaning Donald Trump, whatever you want to think of him, he did use special ops and all those things. He was incompetent. He was clumsy. He provoked. He got us to the brink of war, but he didn't start any new ones. Can you say that about Biden? I cannot. And the hawk, Tony Blinken, that Biden is putting in that office has been with Biden for the last 20 years or so. He has been involved in nearly every war that the U.S. has been involved in. Push for the regime change in Libya. They're selling black slaves in Libya. If you go there, it's a basket case ever since our involvement. Syria and the policy of arming terrorists in that country, basically rapists and murderers. Obama's weird backward policy where you had some situations where the CIA-backed groups was fighting military-backed groups. Yes, terrorists fighting each other, paid by different aspects of our intelligence system. This was his idea. I mean, these were the policies that this guy supported. Iraq, he was for the takedown of Islam. I'm making the point that the harebrained schemes that the Democratic Party has been engaged in, this foreign militarism. Blinken, one of the people at the table and a proponent for all of it. The policy on Yemen, again, Blinken at the table. Understand the policy of Yemen was starvation of the population, using disease to force results. Even using wheat in Syria as a weapon to try to force the government into capitulation. Yes, these were his harebrained schemes. The chemical weapons stuff in Syria. I'm making the point that Joe Biden is bringing somebody in that spot that is a proven full-blown hawk and that is into this idea of militaristic, muscular foreign policy. Mark my words. Mark my words. So right here, during the Trump era, the West Executive Advisors, a corporate consulting firm. So that's where they've been working while out of power. Basically, this looks like some kind of firm where a bunch of Democrats go until they get back in office, in which case they bring all the Obama, Clinton types, the third ways, back into office. But in this very specific case, I'm trying to make the point of his track record in that office and what to expect for him in that office. This is an audio clip. This is him, his own words. Listen to him speak.
Large-scale, open-ended deployment of large standing U.S. forces in conflict zones with no clear strategy should end and will end under his watch. But we also need to distinguish between, for example, these endless wars with the large-scale, open-ended deployment of U.S. forces with, for example, discrete, small-scale, sustainable operations, maybe led by special forces, to support local actors. In ending the endless wars, we also have to be careful not to paint with too broad a brushstroke.
So Biden...
Basically, we're not going to do the big wars. What we're going to do is have small wars, tiny wars. where we use our basically drones and we use our SEAL teams and whatnot, and we go in and murder and kill and destroy secretly, privately, covertly, so nobody would know about it. So you don't have to deal with this notion of the American public sticking his nose in your business. He's basically talking about a secret militaristic empire that is out the eye shot of the American public. Now understand, much of the budget is already black. So his argument is basically, yeah, you don't really need the big stuff. You can use a technologically advanced military where you dump a ton of money. Because again, one of the guys who's a proponent for dumping more money into making more sophisticated military technology, these kind of hypersonic missiles, the automated drones in the water, like these automated submarines that can kind of work in tandem to attack an enemy, these flights, the AI, all of this stuff, and the money that we're going to spend and dump into the stuff. That's the guy, Blinken. And that's not even getting to the other gentleman that's along with Blinken. I don't know, what is it, Florino's or whatever his name is, position. So I'm going to focus on Blinken for this one. I did the video talking about the gentleman who they were choosing for the environment. At which point do all of these lefties come to Jesus and accept that I was right? You lose all leverage the moment Biden wins. Biden has been in office for 47 years, and you honestly expect a person who's been in office for nearly half of a century to somehow change their spots? No, he's going back to status quo. He told you, if you don't like it, go vote for somebody else. That was his behavior. That was his point of view. That point of view didn't change one iota. And now that he's in that office, he's going to do whatever he wants to do in that office. And it's unclear what that is. What we do know is status quo is back into effect. We do know militarism is back into effect. The additional wars that Trump didn't necessarily start, Joe Biden is going to get back to it. The other trade deals that the American public hated, Joe Biden is probably going to get back to it. All of those things that you hated with Hillary Clinton, you're going to probably get with a dumber version of her under Joe Biden, especially from the standpoint of a muscular foreign policy around the world. Say what you want about Trump. From the standpoint of foreign policy in regards to the presidents, yes, there was a certain degree of bellicosity. But he also kept us out of additional wars, whereas Obama started like 6 or 7. Not to mention the shadow wars that was taking place in Africa and the Middle East. I'll end it here. But you voted for this. Just be very clear. You voted for this. All of those lefties that said vote for Joe Biden, you voted for this. All of those lefties, go, you got to back Biden, you got to back Biden. Well, Obama got 500,000 people killed in Syria. Blinken, right by his side when he did it. Think of the thousands of people that murdered and killed in Libya based on U.S. policy. Again, Blinken, right there. These are his plans. Think of the people in Syria about the chemical weapons trial. I'm making the point to you that all of these people that have died in all of these wars, Blinken was right there beside a Democrat, arm in arm, advertising it, pushing for it. That's the guy that Biden is bringing back in as Secretary of State. Like, share, and of course, subscribe.